The penultimate episode of the first season is under the microscope at an undetermined distance, but it isn't so close that our hairlines rapidly recede and Oxbridge grant honorary doctorates for our scholarly endeavours. This episode honestly was one of the more jam-packed ones so far because it had scenes that had contextual clarity. There was less action, but certainly far more story, at least in my eyes. In this episode, we are largely dealing with the aftermath of the eruption of the volcano in the newly christened lands of Mordor. Miriel gets blinded, and so she misses the point where Captain Elendil clearly never, ever wants to return to Middle-earth after his son is deemed dead after she pushed him into a burning building. Cheers, love. It poses an interesting question for how Elendil is now going to serve his queen if he were to blame her more for his loss than himself for bringing Galadriel into their lives. How would this affect his later role in the War of the Last Alliance if his relationship with elves is marred, especially, his daughter is waiting for him on Númenor to say, "I told you so." Sooner or later, he will have to come to terms with that, and remember, the sea is always right. And after all, I don't think Isildur is actually dead. They left the garrison in Middle-earth to go back and retrieve survivors, and this is the perfect time for Isildur to find the purpose that his friend Elendil had urged him to do before. Since Elendil set Beric free, then I think that he could be the perfect candidate of finding him. This show does have a bit of a habit for having some small comparative scenes with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and this seems like an opportunity to have Isildur's horse give him the kiss of life, just like his descendant Aragorn was found by Brego after he took a little tumble off the cliff. Now, Galadriel and Theo were very interesting vehicle for the story in this episode, and I wouldn't have expected it at all. I just thought that these characters wouldn't interact as they are so different, and yet actually they have quite a lot in common. Theo is very much the same as Galadriel in her earlier days when she lost her loved ones in war and then joined the fight herself. It's a really good example of how learning is best done by teaching someone else from scratch. You can reflect on what you know yourself, and you might even recall something that you may have forgotten. Theo asks if folk are dead, and Galadriel says, "What cannot be known hollows the mind, fill it not with guesswork." Sage advice not only for Theo, but for someone else, and I'll touch on that later in the quickfire points. Theo says how killing orcs is good, but she wouldn't use such words because it darkens the heart to call dark deeds good, and it gives a place for evil to thrive inside us. She did a pretty good job of explaining it plainly enough there. She sees her earlier bloodlust as corrupt, just as Elrond had warned her in episode 1. And it's also a warning then for Theo to not place value on killing things because it will also kill your own love of life. Galadriel continues and says that she lost her brother Finrod and husband Celeborn to the orcs in the war. Presumably Celeborn fought in Beleriand against Morgoth, right? I would not consider this a spoiler because it is on the Amazon X-ray for this very episode in that scene. But it's unlikely that people were probably moving their cursor around while they were watching it so that it would pop up. It says that Celeborn never returned and was not found, hence he might not be dead. Additionally, we know that he survives in Middle-earth for many years into the Fourth Age, and they cannot change the fate of a character like that and go against the tale of years, one would think. Moving on, Theo places blame on himself for what has happened, and Galadriel says, "Do not take the burden of this day on your shoulders, Theo. You may find it difficult to put it down again," thus highlighting how she is aware of the mistake that she made when her brother died. She does pause after Theo asks how to move on from it, and, she concludes that one must trust that perhaps Errol has their plan intact and all shall work out. It really isn't a definitive answer, and it's kind of like a meh YOLO, and there's a degree of apathy there since she realizes that she doesn't have the power to single-handedly do these things, and you shouldn't worry about things that you have no control over if you want to be free of grief anyway. And you see that their journey to the camp has actually had a positive effect on the boy as he thrusts his sword in triumph in the air towards Halbrand at the end. In Khazad there were many rumblings, and not just down in the mithril pit. Everyone but the king wishes to open the mithril mine to the elves, and to be honest, well, he is correct to not do so. It's very interesting how prophetic he is, though, because he says, "Tempting shadow, rock, and mine to bury us all beneath the mountain. What mountain has a shadow within it, unless it is this one, right? Balrogs are synonymous with shadow and flame. This is followed by one of the most moving scenes of the series, along with the prince, Elrond, and Disa. There's another one later on as well, I would argue. But Elrond bids Namarie in a scene that recalls the scene at the Grey Havens when Gandalf says farewell to the hobbits and declares the end of their fellowship, and says that not all tears are evil. And as the mithril battery clears the infection from the leaf, Durin's tears turn to joy because, unlike Gandalf, we get to see Elrond again. I think this scene was really, really well done, and it was juxtaposed quite nicely with that humorous part with Durin and Disa that I just had before Elrond stepped in. Now, Disa, she is an ambitious woman, and we are reminded that one day they will be in power and they will dig in this mountain, and I'm sure it will all end well. Perhaps they will dig in another mountain too. Right, and on to the quickfire points that I promised earlier on. The Harfoots seem to have had a change of heart towards the stranger after wolf attack, and have taken him in as one of their own after being isolated from the big folk for so long. Sadok says, "Pity's sake, Brandyfoot, give us a moment to weep."
Give them a moment, for pity's sake.
Okay, hi Boromir. Largo's following speech emboldens Nori to not abandon the stranger, and actually this has the same effect on her mother, Poppy, and even Malva, who had urged them to be de-caravanned previously. So wow, what a 180 there. Now, Halbrand, he was found on the road and was wounded. It seems odd that perhaps he hadn't made such a big deal about it, perhaps because he is an imposter and wants to keep quiet. Remember his actions or interactions with Adar, who took everything from him, like all of his orcs that he wanted to experiment on. He has no other known family, and he seems to have some guilt for his actions regarding the orcs in some way. Perhaps that's also experimentation. Anyhow, he needs elvish medicine, which is the perfect way to get into an elven court and perhaps weave some of his magic. Okay, I'll leave it there, perhaps for another video. Now, there must be a proper term for this. Perhaps one of you guys in the comments can help me out here, because I'm not educated in filmography. There is a scene where Elendil asks Elendil, "Where is my son?" before it cuts to Theo and Galadriel, who says they're dead, aren't they? Two conversations which perhaps lead one from the other. This happens again in this episode when Theo asks where the light is in Mordor. Now, just before Durin and Elrond view the labyrinth of mithril seams. It's like, oh, hey, like, there's the light. Save the elves and perhaps the elves will save you. In one of the earlier scenes between father and son, King Durin noted that his son had the look of a great king with a massive army as a child, perhaps with a bunch of banners behind him. Later on, Disa reminds the prince that he shall be King Durin IV, and King Durin IV was probably involved in the greatest battle of the age, was amongst the free peoples at the War of the Last Alliance, which is a pretty big army indeed. Right, let's not make this any longer than we have to, because the day that I'm putting this up, the finale is actually being aired. So anyway, come back soon for that overview, and I'll make a few further videos on this series before I move on to other Middle-earth content. So subscribe if you like, and cheers and good day.